Hello and welcome back to the Reactivist Podcast. I'm Marlena Shivo. Well, it is a new year, and what do we expect from 2025? God only knows. All I know is that the more things change, the more one thing seems to stay the same. Over the weekend, the Golden Globes kicked off, and I couldn't help but notice the reoccurring theme that went on during the award ceremony. I want to start off with Demi Moore during her acceptance speech.
30 years ago, I had a producer tell me that I was a popcorn actress. And at that time, I made that mean that this wasn't something that I was allowed to have, that I could do movies that were successful, that made a lot of money, but that I couldn't be acknowledged. And I bought in, and I believed that.
I think it's funny that she did say a producer and didn't say whether it was a man or not. But then she said this.
I had a woman say to me, just know you will never be enough, but you can know the value of your worth if you just put down the measuring stick. And so today I celebrate this as a marker of my wholeness and of the love that is driving me, and for the gift of doing something I love and being reminded that I do belong. Thank you so much.
Aha. See that? Leave it to a woman. Now, Jennifer Coolidge was also at the Golden Globes presenting, and she made a joke about how men get special treatment.
Tonight, I have the incredible honor of recognizing the men who had the daunting task of carrying the weight of an entire series on their shoulders. And believe me, it's not easy. I mean, I do know how hard it is for you guys to have to pretend to be nice to everybody. But then again, you guys do get very special treatment on the set. I was on a job once, and the lead male actor was the only one that got green juice. And
it's funny because she's funny, but it's not funny because it's true. We do live in a male-dominated society, and we have to work harder in order to prove ourselves. Now, we've heard endlessly and still hear endlessly about women who have to break glass ceilings and who sleep their way to the top, even though they haven't. Women have skills that are equal or better than their male counterparts. But Nikki Glaser, who hosted the Golden Globes, also made a joke in the same vein.
I am absolutely thrilled to be your host tonight. Thank you. And I gotta say, this feels like I finally made it. I'm in a room full of producers at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and this time all of my clothes are on. So yeah, it was worth it.
She ended her monologue on something that resonated the most with me because it's something I talk about and have talked about through the years.
I predict 5 years from now, when you're watching old clips of this show on YouTube, you'll see someone in one of the crowd shots and you'll go, oh my God, that was before they caught that guy. We could be making history tonight and we don't even know with who. He knows, or she. It could be a woman, I think 100% of the time it's a man, but it could be a woman. It won't be. It never is. Kind of like Best Director. All right.
It's funny that she said 100% of the time, which I'm sure some people would take issue with that, but it feels that way when it comes to harassment or it comes to men in power who take advantage of women, women having to fight their way to have and hold equal positions. And also they have to sort of prove themselves in many ways to men. It got me thinking about past conversations I've had when I've done radio commentary, and I pulled a few clips, and it just goes to show that, like I said, the more things change, this one thing seems to stay the same. about 4 years ago, Jeffrey Toobin at CNN was suspended for exposing himself on a Zoom call. And this was during a time where people were working remotely most of the time. So he also got suspended from The New Yorker. And my radio cohort, Frank Morano, and I had a little bit of, I guess you could say, fun with this, but it really speaks to exactly what Nikki Glaser just said. Take a listen.
Your reaction to the Jeffrey Toobin situation?
Honestly, it is it is a non-reaction because it is such a common story anymore. You hear about men doing lewd things all the time. You've got Anthony Weiners, you have Bill Clintons, you've got Trump, Elliot Spitzer. You've got
the four people you just mentioned: Spitzer, Weiner,
Epstein,
Clinton, Trump. Well, Epstein's special
Louis
case.
C.K. I mean, I could keep going.
But the 5 of the 6 people that you just mentioned: Louis C.K., Elliot Spitzer, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Weiner. They all did things. They all did things, sort of trying to be in private. I mean, they didn't do it in a workplace.
That's
Zoom.
That's not even. But that's not even the point. The point is that when we have stories like this, whether it's on a Zoom or in an Oval Office, it's always a man doing it. You'll never see a headline that says, Christiane Amanpour exposed herself on assignment in Nairobi. I mean, you're not going to see that headline. You're not going to see it. I think it's so funny how hard Frank laughed at the idea of Christiane Amanpour being accused of the same thing that all these other men have been accused of to some extent. But what I found even more interesting was almost his defense when I started listing these public figures who have had accusations against them and what he said about the differences between a Jeffrey Toobin and these other individuals, which, by the way, was not the extent of the full list that I had. And to be fair, I pulled some other public figures who are women who had some negative press around them over the years. Or the worst things you hear about women in the media are, Ellen DeGeneres. She's not as nice as she seems.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Kellyanne Conway chose her career over her family. Hillary Clinton, she's cold. Again, comparatively, it is night and day. It is not the same thing at all. So there's that. In another conversation I had at 77 WABC in New York with Frank, we were discussing at the time the mayoral race in New York City. And one of the candidates was Scott Stringer. And Scott Stringer did not become the nominee. During his campaign, a story had surfaced about a woman he, I guess, had an affair with, and she said it was not consensual. He said it was consensual, but this particular relationship or this interaction took place 20 years prior. So Frank was making a point on his show about saying, there has to be some sort of statute of limitations on when this comes out. Like, why didn't it come out earlier? Sort of questioning this woman's story. And just to prove a point, I made light of what he was saying, but I made a point nonetheless. I was listening to you talk about, Scott Stringer and everything, yes, and the woman, and now that, you're always willing to listen to women and in light of Me Too, you're not always willing to believe all of them. So I need to file a complaint.
Oh boy.
In real time. When I walked into the studio this morning, there was no water in the break room and I needed to fill my water bottle. So I wanted to go on record now that I put in this complaint. So a few years down the line, when I bring it up again, if I bring it up again, you cannot accuse me of waiting too long to bring it up.
All right. Well, that's a documented complaint, Christian. Okay. You're a witness. It's here on radio.
It's noted and been sent to HR.
A documented complaint.
You do make a compelling argument for Scott Stringer. However, I do think that if your wife, Rachel, ever allows you to consummate your marriage and that consummation results in a child and that child happens to be female, I can totally see you changing your tune
I'm sure
when
that's
it comes
true.
to Me Too and anything harassment related.
I am sure that's true.
Put that on record as well.
I have no doubt that.
So there's that. And then I had a conversation on the morning show a few years back with Sid Rosenberg, again, 77 WABC, and notice the reaction that Sid has when I tell him something so simple like women can multitask and men can't. Women can multitask. We can do everything.
What do you mean women can multitask?
Women can multitask.
As opposed to what, men?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, is there another?
No, I just don't understand why you think women can only multitask.
No, I don't think it. I know.
I mean, I work for a guy, John Kaczmatidis, who runs 9 companies a day. You know what I do during the day? I mean, I'm going to the gym. I'm taking my son to play basketball. And I'm hosting shows. I'm doing TV. I'm doing radio. I'm hosting events. Multitasking.
Yeah. No.
I do more in one day than a lot of you women do in a week.
No. You do.
And I take care of the kids.
You do things back to back. Right? You do things back to back.
No, sometimes at the same time.
You mean what? You are talking on the phone and driving your kids to basketball?
Well, I don't drive anymore, but I have done that, yes. Basketball, tennis. Well, give me an example of what you do.
Why don't you drive anymore? So defensive. And I stand by what I said, and I actually am kind of annoyed that I cut him off because we ended up talking about why he doesn't drive when he had asked me what I mean by multitasking. He basically said he's busy. I have a job, and then I go to this other thing, and I go to this other thing, and I go, all right, I give him that. He has a busy schedule. But having a busy schedule is not the same as multitasking. It just isn't. Multitasking is being busy and having to do other things while you're busy, weave it all together, and get it all done successfully. That's what multitasking is. And I stand by what I say. When women are the masters of this. I'm not saying all women, and I'm not saying not one man on this planet can multitask, but in my experience, this is not a strong suit for men, which blows my mind considering there are so many men who end up in leadership positions, whether it's in government or it's in business. And there's so many women who can just run on empty and still can get everything done. And they're working just as hard. They're working even harder. And yet we have to constantly prove ourselves as women. So I guess I'm not really confident that 2025 will bring a new set of circumstances for us. But, we'll get there one day. Speaking of men in power, there was a clip that surfaced of Don Jr. defending himself. I know a lot of people always accuse him of being on cocaine because of his appearance and the way he talks and some of his behavior. And so he recently was on Rumble defending himself because I guess there was some video that had surfaced not too long ago, within the last month at least, where he was with his father, Donald Trump, and he was with Elon Musk at an event, and he put his finger in his mouth. So immediately people are saying he's, rubbing his teeth with cocaine. And, he had this to say.
I was adjusting a Zyn in my mouth. I'm literally standing next to my father and Elon Musk in front of TV cameras. So just to be clear, not doing coke. Okay, that's not my thing. Never has been. Contrary to popular belief and internet lore and Democrat histrionics, it's not my thing. And I imagine if I was a big drug user, you'd probably hear about it, folks. You'd probably definitely hear about it before everyone else. So that video is me literally going like that, adjusting a Zyn pouch that slipped out of my lip. I do that. Sorry, not perfect.
So it begs the question, what does keep Don Jr.'s motor going?
I get by on adrenaline, testosterone, caffeine, and some nicotine.
Adrenaline, testosterone, nicotine. Sounds like a recipe for toxic masculinity. Speaking of change that clearly nobody wants, another video that was making the rounds over the past couple days was this tech entrepreneur who was stuck going in circles as he was making his way to the airport in a driverless car, right? So the Waymo car, the car that gets you where you're going with no human behind the wheel. That was your first mistake. This car was just malfunctioning and going in circles in a parking lot in Scottsdale, Arizona. I mean, not for anything. I don't need a Genius bar to tell me not to get into a car that drives itself.
Okay, why is this happening to me on a Monday? I'm in a Waymo car.
Connected to rider support. This call may be recorded for quality assurance.
This car is just going in circles.
I mean, it's one thing to lose control of a car, but it's another to never have control of that car to begin with. Wouldn't you say? The irony being that his biggest complaint was that he almost missed his flight. I would like a human being driving the vehicle that I'm in. That, for me, is a solid requirement. Speaking of requirements, let's move to the state of New Jersey. What's going on there? Well, I'll tell you. A command of reading and writing is no longer a requirement by the state of New Jersey in order to be certified as a public school teacher. I am not joking. New Jersey ends basic reading and writing skills test requirement for teachers. That's right. Teachers in New Jersey will no longer be required to pass basic reading, writing, and math tests to be eligible for public schools according to the new law. Who signed that into law? Oh, right. Of course, it was Governor Murphy. Ay, ay, ay. The State Board of Education shall not require a candidate seeking a certificate of eligibility with advanced standing, a provisional certificate, or a standard instructional certificate to complete a Commissioner of Education approved test of basic reading, blah, 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 blah. What are they saying? We need more teachers. This is the best way to get them. The best way to get them. Who can we get to teach kids how to read, write, and do math? I got it. Let's get teachers who don't know how to read, write, and do math. Who is the genius that came up with that one? Why are we dumbing down our requirements for adults who teach our kids? Just like the basic requirement of a car driving, I think, should be a human behind the wheel. I would want for a teacher to be fully certified in skills like reading, writing, and math. At this point, I almost would rather have AI teaching the class. There's a shortage of teachers. There's going to be a shortage of education. Why is there a shortage of teachers in the public school system? I would imagine it's has something to do with the pay. It's like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So instead of dumbing down the test requirements for teachers, maybe, just an idea, maybe they should get paid a little bit more money. Just some food for thought. This is what we're walking into 2025 with. What's worse? Teachers who don't know the basics of reading and writing and math, a car that drives itself and doesn't have a safety option for when something like this malfunctions, or the fact that women are still at a disadvantage when it comes to life on Earth. I don't know. Which one do you choose as the worst of those three options?